So I wanted to ask about what's like the store about and like why did the store was created
Sure.
basically.
So 256 Healing Center is uh, the first kind of retail space for an organization that exists a little bit over 15, 16 years. The organization was created by practitioners that were either traditionalists in Lukumi, they were traditionalists in Yoruba, the Sheshe culture. They were healers. They did that work, and they wanted to come together and to find a space that would allow for healing to exist. So the organization still exists. Right now, we are an educational academy around Yoruba culture. And then this space itself is the space where people can come to either get readings, to learn more about African culture, to have opportunities for workshops, to get fine clothing, all those kinds of things we carry as a space and community for those who also align with this tradition.
So like how is the reading? Like I want to know more about the readings and
Okay.
is it like really in depth telling you about your future?
So divination in the Sheshe culture is about a moment in time, right? The way that the oracle works is that a babalawo or a trained Yanifa will use different tools. So if they use Okwele, if they use a king, depending on what their tool is, it'll give you that information for that period of time. And so that period of time, you would get an Odu that gives you. Sure, no problem. You
Yeah.
get an Odu, and that Odu will give you information about what may be going on in your life, things that you need to be aware of, deities or energies that you need to pay homage to or appease during that time for life to be easy.
Thank you for that the answer. So what are like some common misconceptions about, Orisha offerings and African.
There are lots of misconceptions. I think one of them is that it's evil, or that it's satanic work or anything like that. And I always say the reason why we were given that understanding was so that we could be conquered, right? And so, in the narrative of the world conquering Africa, you couldn't conquer someone who you believed had more power than you. So, what you did is you attacked their character. And so to this day, we're still dealing with the attack on our character. But these traditions exist. I will say it just got off a really powerful call with an elder who talks about the fact that, yeah, they use our traditions in order for them to gain in the world, right? This idea of, this very simple thing, we're getting ready to go into our ancestral celebration. And so when we talk about ancestors, we talk about our ancestors. And one of the things in African tradition is that so long as we call their name, they continue to exist. Because spirit is bigger than the body, right? Because we don't exist on this plane doesn't mean their spirits don't exist. And so what you do is you call their names. But what do we do every day? We call their ancestors' names every day. Why? They name the streets, every single street.
That is true.
Farragut, Foster, Wilmington, every single name is there. So without us technically understanding that we're doing it every day, we are paying homage to their ancestors. They didn't get that from themselves. Europe doesn't have a bunch of places where they had names on the street. That's not just how it was. But they figured it out. And so what we have to do in our tradition is to come back to what we know, right? These are things that we know. We don't know why we know it, but we know it. And so being able to now uplift it in a way that it is not hidden and not something that we're, not proud of.
So I have a question with the homage thing. Like, how do you think, like, we can pay homage? Like, even like a person for myself, like, how can I pay homage to my ancestors?
One, just finding out who they were and calling their name. There are lots of other rituals that you can do, but something just as simple as acknowledging who they were and saying their name is very, very powerful. My daughter, in one of the rites of passage that I worked in and the traditions that I worked in the Batu Congo tradition, you always introduce yourself by introducing those in your family tree, right? So I would introduce, my name is, Renee Ifagbaye Eshubola Ayelagbe Egbe Sina. I can keep going. Laje. And I am the daughter of Maureen Smith and Stephen Tyson and Dr. Richard Smith. And I am the granddaughter of. And so I would keep going as far as I can. And when I do that in spaces, it pulls their energy into the room. without people even understanding what that means. It acknowledges that the people that we are seeing are also coming from other spaces that exist. And so I always say to just us as beings in the world, understanding that we didn't get here by ourselves, and we're also always regenerating that information. And so the most important thing we can ever do is to know their names. And once we know their names, one of the other things in terms of like finding out your family tree is like know their names and know what they did. Because many times in indigenous cultures, we're carrying the purpose of our families, right? So I just literally got off a call and was like, if your family are blacksmiths, somebody in the family in this generation is going to be a blacksmith. Why? Because if your family had healers in it, somewhere in this generation is going to be a healer, because that was your ancestral purpose. That line has come through and they're going to do it. And you have some families where everybody does it. And then you have the lines where you have that, what we call that one black sheep that doesn't make sense. Like everybody else is lawyers and doctors. And then you got this one person, like they went completely left. But right. That left may actually be what the family needed to keep that tradition going. And they were the person who kind of tipped back into it.
Wow.
So it's really, really powerful. Like people always say, oh, they're the black sheep. But it's usually not that they're the black sheep. They probably are considered continuing an ancestral purpose that they don't understand why they're so connected to it, but they're just doing it.
I've never seen it like that. Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Just to think that, you know, the things that you're doing could be connected to your ancestors.
Very much so. So I don't consider myself a healer. I do consider myself an alchemist, and I do herbal work and work with plants and plant intelligence. If someone had told me 10 years ago that that's what I would have been doing, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. That's not what I'm going to do. And then one day it started to awaken. And I remembered almost maybe 15 or 20 years ago, I did have a reading. And someone did say, hey, you know that in your line, there were really powerful women herbalists in your family. And I remember them telling me, and they were like, yeah, and you're going to be the one who brings it back. I didn't pay attention to it. I was like, whatever. Move on. Now a plant tree talks to me. I gotta go. I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, there's this plant that keeps coming to me. I don't understand why. I gotta go and find out what it is. This is in my head. Like, yeah.
Wait. So with alchemy, and you know, you're talking about like the plants talk to you. Like, what do they mostly like talk to you about? Like,
it could be their purpose. It could be I need to interact with them and learn about them more. It could be because, you know, plants are, people think that people are the highest consciousness, but actually people are third on the list. Plants are actually the highest consciousness. They're so conscious that we actually see them as still, but they actually are constantly moving, communicating. And then when you think about, like, even if you look at this tree out here, they planted that tree, but that tree exists because of the first seed of time. Everything that ever existed, they've been able to adapt to so that they can exist in the world. And so that's what we experience when we connect with plant intelligence. And so being able to kind of talk to them and see their flowers. Like if you look at this peace lily, that flower that's getting ready to blossom, right? It tells us when it needs water, right? It sits down a certain way. We know if we go next to it, it'll tell us, hey, I need water, or I need this, or I need that. Or come and look at this blossom as it blossoms. Think about what are the things that you want to learn. So, you know, they communicate in a way that it's really powerful if we uncunk our eyes and really pay attention to what's happening around us.
So how can we tap in, like, to like, is it like a human voice?
No, it's really just our. I always say it's like our collective consciousness that you really hear when you sit with it.
I wonder what they're saying now with all these people chopping trees down.
Could you imagine? Like, they're bleeding. And we don't pay attention to the fact that, you know, we think that we can chop them down, and because we have the ability to do so, that it's okay. But we also need to remember we have a reciprocal relationship with plants. Like, you could really get rid of all of them, and guess what? We disappear too, right? And so we don't pay attention to it. That's why you have people who are land bearers who take care of the land. You have people who are water bearers, like they take care of water, because those are things that even though we think as humans we can own them, they really are older than us. They're ancient, right? Plants are ancient. It's an ancient intelligence that we're tapping into. So
what are some lessons you've also learned while dealing with plants?
Everything that we've ever needed on earth, they've always provided for us. We haven't paid attention, but they've provided it. From the fact that we can use from the flower all the way down to the root, you know. And so I think, you know, in the Orisha practice and the Sheshe practice, and a lot of the indigenous practices, we've woven that into our understanding, right? You always had an herbalist. You always had someone who understood how to go out. My grandmother, my great grandmother, yes, they knew how to go out and say, I need that herb. I would never know what it was. I'd know some, very nickname for it. And then as I've gotten older, I've learned the botanical names, and I've learned, oh my God, these are related to this, and how did they get here? And so all of those things are like really powerful about plants, and that they exist in all that we need. I always share this story. When we were just coming out of pandemic, I went on an herbal walk just to kind of walk around and see what was happening. And so I had elders who I'd go to herbal walks with, and so I knew, especially here in Prospect Park, like where certain herbs would grow. And there was this one herb called Star of Bethlehem, and I consider it what we call the trauma herb, right? So it's a flower that exists, and it really comes to life when there's trauma happening in the world. This particular flower was growing at all of the entrances. That's not where it normally grows. That you were seeing this, like they were almost greeting us and understanding, hey, stuff's going on with y'all. Y'all need some help. They were growing in these patches right at the entrance. It's not where they usually grow. I would say usually I find them way deeper into the park. The same thing year after that, we were going through, a lot of people were talking about cleansing, and they needed to like really ensure that their bodies were well, because COVID and like all the things that were going on in their body. And so a lot of bitters were coming up. So like burdock root, again, growing in places that it normally does not grow. You don't see these patches that we're seeing here. We usually see them way down. They were growing in different places, and almost like they were responding to what was happening in the world. And so that's really what happens. Many herbalists will say anything that you need will come up, and you'll see it grow in a plant in your backyard. You've never seen it before, and all of a sudden this plant starts growing in the backyard. Always pay attention to that, because somehow the seed got there and it's showing up.
Wow, and I know bitters are there for you to like, feel better when you're sick. Because my mom has some bitter syrup. It tastes very nasty, but
it does.
It's supposed to help you.
It will help you. It will help you.
So I want to know about like the Orishas and like the African gods that you guys have in your store.
Sure. So we are an Oshun house, meaning that our Oluo, our teacher and our chief, he is initiated to Oshun. And so a lot of the people who are affiliated in the actual academy and organization are also affiliated with Oshun. They have some relationship with her. And so she is she is the deity of fresh water. She was the one woman who, when the earth was being created, Olodumare, which is the name for the Almighty Creator, he sent down, or he or she, it's non-gendered, but they sent down all of these Orisha. Most of them were males, and just Oshun. And people always say, well, why did they send her down? She's the deity of fresh water. Like, you can't do anything without water.
You can't.
You can't mix concrete. You can't grow food. You can't take a shower. You can't cook food. Nothing. And so the story goes is that they went down, and the men were like, oh, we don't really need her. And so they started disrespecting her. And so she was like, okay, fine. Are you sure you don't? No, we don't need you. Okay. Mm-hmm. She went off in the corner and was like, all right, fine. I'm not doing any. Well, everything that they tried didn't work. Nothing worked. They tried to, things would fall apart. Things were drying up. People didn't have enough food. It's like, okay. They went back to Olodumare. Olodumare said, interesting. All the men are here. Where's the woman I sent down with you? Oh, we didn't need her. She, he said, where is she? Oh, well, y'all should go find her, because you've disrespected her, and now she's offended, and nothing that you do is going to work, because I sent water with you because you need water. And so that is And so that is, the story of Oshun, and one of the reasons why she is included in everything. And so in, the diaspora, Oshun can be seen as a lot of things. You see her sometimes as fertility, as this idea of like sexiness and love, but for us, it's really this idea of water. It's something that we can't live without, right? And that flowing of water, when you understand the entity of water being a reconciler, something that really works to always heal and bring us back to wholeness, like that's the way water works. That is really the power of Oshun. So we are an Oshun house. We also have other deities here. We have Eshu, which is at our door. We have a couple of different Eshus here.
Oh, where's the Eshu?
Eshu is right there at the door. Yeah, that red and black right there. And so Eshu, because Eshu is also very important to me, is interesting because one of the things that happens is that red and black had been translated into Eshu being the devil, which is not true. In most indigenous cultures, they don't really have a concept of the devil or evil. You just have balance. So you have more, less, good, bad. Not really good, bad, but like challenging, right? Everyone has a reason to exist. And so Eshu was interpreted by the Europeans as being the devil, but what he actually is the messenger. He was the one who stood at the crossroads and ensured that our prayers got to where they were, that the road was open so that things would happen, that you always honored and paid homage to him before you did anything. So any festival that we have, any ceremonies we go into, you would always go and ask, say, Eshu, we want to make sure that this is going to be well. And he would, be like, hey, the road is open. So there are many of them. In the Sheshe culture, or just in the tradition, they say over 401 Orunmila, meaning there's that many deities. And depending on where, so the ones that we see often are Eshu and Ogun and Chosi and Yemaja and Oya and Shango and Obatala. A lot of them are Olokun. You'll see a lot of them because they translated past the transatlantic slave trade, so we brought those traditions across the water with us. But there's so many that didn't translate for us, and that still exist because they also were very environmental, meaning there was a specific village in which this particular deity sat and was cared for. And so when you go to different villages, you'll also see that, where you'll see different pieces of that too.
So my final question is, if someone wants to start off their spiritual journey, what would you recommend for them to use in the store?
To use in the store, I don't know. There's so many. It depends on what they're looking to accomplish. I personally would say if you were looking to start your spiritual journey, that you would either get a reading done, or you can look on our website and you'll see some videos that we've created, films that we've created about the deities and the concepts, to see if that is something that you want to continue with. I think once you do that, then it becomes kind of because this for us is not really about the things itself. It actually is a way of life and a practice. So it's something that you would embody every day. As you learn it, you start embodying it, right?
Oh, so it's a way of life.
It's a way of life, right? So it's not like, today I decided I want to put on green shoes, right? But there's something very different when you understand, today I put on green shoes, and green is a color that's represented with Oshun or represented with Ogun, and I'm very much wearing that color because I'm in tuned with that color and that deity, right? So that becomes a different way of me getting dressed every day than me just putting on whatever, right? So today is Shango's day and it's Oya's day, and so red is one of the colors. So I may not wear all red, but today I know if I'm in alignment with that energy, I'm going to put that color on. I'm going to pay homage to them in that color. I'm going to understand that gives me some vitality and some understanding around my own working towards victory and so on and so forth. So that's how it becomes kind of the way in which you live.
So basically, you're just paying homage to whatever energy you feel that day.
That day. Well, what you feel that day, but also in the tradition, there's actually a calendar, a worship day. So each day we have a 4-day worship calendar, and so the Orisha will rotate on those days, and so those are the days. So for example, tomorrow we begin our Egungun festival. So because we begin Egungun, we will not do Obatala, but tomorrow's Obatala's day, the king of the white cloth. So the white cloth, we would wear all white usually. If you see me wearing all white, it's usually Obatala's day. Greetings, how are you?
But thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. What's your name?
Gianni.
Hi, Gianni.
Yes. So this is the 256 Healing Center. It is a great center if you want to dive more in African spirituality, and this is a real good story. Thank you so much for holding me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.